What's up, everybody? It's Peter Tragos, the lawyer you know, checking in from vacation to talk about Johnny Depp taking the stand in his own case. We'll talk about his testimony, how I think it went from a trial lawyer's perspective, if I would have been happy or upset or feeling like he did a good job or bad job, depending on how you look at a case and how you look at a client that testifies. Because as we talk about in a lot of these civil cases, the client can make all the difference in the world. And sometimes the jury just makes the decision based on which party they like better, they feel like they can believe. A lot of times that's what it comes down to. And Johnny Depp took the stand for a large portion of today. So we're going to talk about his testimony. I also want to talk just for a second, because we haven't talked at all about the head of his securities testimony, which I found really interesting from a trial perspective and a witness perspective on how he did and some of the things he testified about and how he testified. Um, so it's going to be fun. This was random. This was last minute. I don't expect really anybody to be on here watching or asking questions. If you do join me live randomly here, I just put it up because I had a few minutes here on vacation where things are just kind of slow right now before we start the night stuff. So I want to jump on, just talk about it a little bit, and then for all of you that can watch it later, awesome. Oh, okay. So there are some people joining in. Grant, glad you could catch your first live, bud. What's up, Jack? No objections while he testified. I agree, and we're going to get into some of that. Why? What that indicates to me that the jury's kind of feeling. Brandon, what's up, buddy? Yes, Dirty Rick, literally surprised live. I'm sure there are going to be some people upset that they missed it, so I apologize. My social media marketer is also out of town this week, and so am I. So it's hard to kind of get this stuff um, planned. So I'm just going to jump on when I can. I wasn't able to get on Rakita or Legal Bites today. Bavik, what's up? You're back. Noni, what's up? Some people talking about, yes, Bavik, I'm in the mountains in a cabin, and I am going to trim this up after my vacation, but I figure leave the mountain man look going. And I got my hair pulled back in honor of Johnny pulling it back at trial. Deborah, Brooksville, very close. We got some cases in Brooksville. A lot of good golf in Brooksville. All right. So I want to start out talking about actually, let's save the security guy for the end because I'm sure most people want to hear about Johnny Depp. People are still joining it. Let's start with the security guy because it's going to be short. Okay. So if you haven't already, like, subscribe, whatever, hit the bell so that when I do a random live, you can get alerted because we do more random lives here probably than most other channels. So the security guy, ex-cop, and in case you don't know, most officers can be experts based on their training and experience, and they do not have to be qualified as experts. And as experts like that, they can testify to things like someone was speeding, someone was committing a crime, or someone was intoxicated, which was part of his testimony. And I thought that was interesting. Sometimes they were allowed to get into it. Sometimes when the other side objected, they didn't let him get into certain things that, if it were me, I would try to qualify him at least as an expert for those matters if I wanted him to testify to them at trial. And people like cops, they usually believe cops, at least for the most part, and maybe in an earlier day and age. But really interesting that he was called, that he works for Johnny, obviously biased towards Johnny. I think also there was some good and bad, but we'll start with the good. Whenever we have a personal injury case and somebody has pictures, right, after a slip and fall or after a car accident, well, you must have been fine because you can take pictures. Today's day and age, people know you need to document this because people might lie later and you might get screwed later if you didn't document what happened. So I think that having the security guard say that he told Johnny to take these pictures to document the injuries, that was good. And it made it look like Johnny wasn't trying to set up Amber Heard like he is claiming she's doing to him. So I thought that made Johnny look honest. The officer saying, listen, you need to do this stuff. This is pretty bad. These are bad marks. So that all makes sense to me as to why that kind of happened the way it did. And I thought that was all positive about the law enforcement officer. I also thought that the security guy / ex-cop was able to get into stuff and force answers to get certain things in front of the jury, ring the bell that could not be unrung, even with an objection, even with the judge striking parts of his testimony. So I think he did get into that. Now, the negatives. When there are pictures, and the pictures are not horrible, and you try to explain them in a way that make them seem horrible, sometimes you can lose credibility with the jury. We've seen this happen, and I try to do this to defense experts a lot in my trials, where they act like, oh, it's no big deal, just a little herniation, whatever. And it's like, well, this person's entire life changed. So when they belittle something or they try to go too far overboard, or in his case, when he made it seem like, Johnny Depp's eye was swollen shut when there was a little bit of swelling in black and blue. Now, yes, absolutely an injury, absolutely some evidence that she hit him, absolutely testified to it like that. I think he may have pushed a little far in certain areas. And lastly, the worst part about his testimony, in my opinion, was that he would give answers knowing they were inadmissible, knowing they were hearsay. He's testified a lot in trials before. He was trying to sneak them in, and I hate that. Even though, we think Johnny's kind of winning the case, and we'll talk more about how we feel about Johnny now that we've heard him testify a lot, and it's kind of pushing towards him. I do not like when a witness does that. It is not fair. It is not playing by the rules. It breeds contentment or discontentment. Is that the word I'm thinking of? That the other lawyers are now going to try to do the same thing with their witnesses and coach them to say things we know are inadmissible. And we just don't want that. We want to be able to know everybody's playing by the same rules. Now, listen, we did an entire video of all the rules Amber Heard's lawyers are potentially breaking, but Johnny Depp's lawyers should not stoop to that level. They should not ask questions knowing that it's going to elicit an answer that's potentially inadmissible. You know that as a lawyer, you cannot ask a question knowing that he got this answer from hearsay, knowing that you are putting this in front of the court, knowing that it's inadmissible. We can't do that. Now, sometimes people think lawyers do that, but it's not the truth. And we should not do that if we know it's going to be inadmissible. Now, if we ask a question, he answers it and he says, I heard somebody say this. Well, sometimes we can't do anything about that because we don't know how he's answering it. So, I really did not like that about him. Even though I do think he scored points for Johnny, I really don't like trying to snake in or slip in answers when you know that they're inadmissible as a witness that knows better. He's not just a lay witness. All right. So I just want to talk about that a little bit with the security guard. But now let's get to Johnny Depp's testimony. The facts and what he testified to, I don't think is a big surprise. I think we already knew a lot about this from some of the other witnesses. He did admit to doing cocaine with Amber Heard's sister. But the first part I want to talk about is he explained why he is suing Amber Heard. And he was allowed to just talk and go on what we call a narrative without a bunch of objections, without a bunch of questions. He was just able to talk. And sometimes that's inadmissible. Sometimes that can be an objection all on its own, that the witness is going on a narrative, and the judge, and actually, according to the rules, the judge can force his lawyer to break up his narrative with more questions. We did not see that here. Somebody put in the chat, there was almost no objections during Johnny Depp's testimony today. There were a few, but not a ton. But about that narrative, what's so important about that and what's interesting about that? That is unusual. Usually plaintiffs don't explain an answer straight up like that. Why are we here? But I think that absolutely Amber Heard's lawyers opening, as we've mentioned multiple times, saying Johnny Depp's trying to drag her name through the mud. That's why we're in Virginia. He's trying to make it hard on here. We shouldn't even be in Virginia. He was able to articulate, and listen, he's an actor. He's a star actor. He's an awesome actor. So he's going to be able to speak in front of people, even though I do think he was a little nervous at first, but then he settled in. He was able to just verbalize perfectly and eloquently why we are here, why he needs to stand up to this, why he fights for the truth, why it's so important for his family, why it's so important in the industry, why it's so important to victims to tell the truth and not have lies like this spread. And he was able to just explain to the jury why we're here, why he brought this case, why he sued Amber Heard. And I think that goes a long way because jurors have to know we're here for a good reason. And the plaintiff, if he's going to be blamed for us being here and blamed for being in court, well, why? Why are we here? And he was able to explain it. Again, he fights for the truth, everything they've been through. Amber Heard can't really get away with this. It hurts his family. It hurts his kids who were in high school when this all started. And I thought that was a great point, and he was off to a running start explaining that. And then he got into a lot of his childhood, his abuse, how the drugs started early. He talked about being addicted to Roxy and how he went through detox and what that detox is like, how difficult it is. Again, he talked about cocaine. He talked about providing free lodging and apartments in the penthouse for all of his friends, all of Amber's friends. He talked about how he met Amber, how they fell in love on the set. Didn't cheat on his wife, but fell in love on the set. He gave a pretty good reason as to why he's not with his ex-wife. She wanted to go back to France. She wanted to be a singer. She was pretty famous in her own right, and he tried to kind of explain that. Now, he fumbled a couple times over that, which is like, you don't want to air that dirty laundry if you don't have to, which, I understand, but you have to ask about it if you're Johnny Depp's lawyers. So I understand that. But why were there no objections? There's a couple different thoughts on this. The first would be the defense lawyers know that the jury likes Johnny Depp. They know he's a likable guy. They know he's a famous guy. They were there for jury selection and listening to how all the potential jurors talked about Johnny Depp. Maybe they said they liked him. So they don't want to look mean. They don't want the jury to think, why don't they want us to hear this? Just let Johnny talk, right? That's one reason. Number two, they don't want to be accused of suppressing his voice and saying, well, they just don't want Johnny to be able to talk, and that's not fair. We want to hear from him. We want to hear what he thinks about this. We want to hear what he says about this. So that's one of the reasons they might not be objecting. Third, they may have ways to impeach him on some of the things that he's saying. They may be able to just prove that these things are false. So they want him to say them because now they can use them against him, use his own words against him. It's not the same as a criminal defendant, but it's still, using the party's own statements against them. You can hang yourself with your own words. We've talked about how I think the recordings and the text messages are going to be the worst part for Johnny Depp. So that may be another reason that they're not objecting. He was able, in my opinion, to speculate and enter the mind of so many people and talk about why they did this or why they felt that or why he did this or what Amber was thinking or what his friends were thinking when they did this and said this and what all this was like and being there. And to me, a lot of it was speculation. A lot of it was probably found out through hearsay. Like we didn't hear a foundation for some of it and how he would know some of this. So I think that from my opinion, he was able to get into a lot of that. And I think that the defense didn't cause the jury to dislike them, how they handled Johnny Depp being on the stand so far. I still think he's got a lot more testimony to go. I think he's going to be on the stand for days potentially. Unless I missed it. Again, I didn't catch every second of it. And I watch it on 1.5 or 2 times speed. But he didn't get into a lot of the abuse yet from Amber Heard. I think we're going to get into that a lot more in the coming days. But I do think there are a lot of strategic decisions and reasons why the defense might not object. They already know everything that he's going to say. Other witnesses are going to corroborate it and say the same thing. I really don't think there were any bombshells. I think there was one incredibly important part and thing about his testimony and takeaway from his testimony as a trial lawyer. Because your client and their believability is so important, because your client filed this lawsuit, because your client took the defendant to court, because your client has the burden to prove something, because your client is saying something's true and they're putting their time and money and energy behind it, the jury has to like your client. So let me know in the chat right now or in the comments if you're more likely to watch this later. Did you think Johnny Depp during his testimony was likable? Type likable in the chat. Or not likable, and write not likable in the chat. Because I want to know from you, potential jurors, how you feel about how Johnny Depp did. Was he believable? And again, likable is going to encompass believable, meaning you believe what he said. You could understand it. It flowed well. It wasn't all choppy and all over the place where you couldn't even try to make out what he was trying to get across. That's all going to be encompassed in likable. Not likable would be, you thought he was lying. You thought he was, high on something right now. You thought he was just out to get Amber, whatever it may be. You can say not likable in the chat. So before we get to whether or not I think he was likable, let's talk about, as a plaintiff's lawyer, what it's like when a plaintiff's on the stand. So sometimes I do the direct. In our trials, I do a lot of the cross-examining of other witnesses. I direct the medical doctors that do the surgeries. I cross the medical experts on the other side. Most of the trials, just for whatever reason, I don't do a lot of the direct examination of the client themselves. It's a big part of the job. The other lawyer usually will take that, and I take a couple other big chunks. I usually do closing. The other lawyer does opening. I usually do jury selection, just kind of off on a tangent in case you were wondering. But when the client is on the stand, that's when I'm sweating. I'm sitting in my chair and I'm sweating because I want the client to do a good job. I know how much time and energy they have put into it. It's a big part of their life. That's when I'm sweating. And if I'm sitting there listening to Johnny Depp, I am feeling a sense of relief as I listen. To me, he seems like he was honest. He seems like he understood the questions. He explained the answers to the jury. He's giving the jury what they want. It's kind of like when jurors want a criminal defendant to take the stand and say, I didn't do it. They want to hear why Johnny's doing this and how he knows it's the truth. And it's the only form of the truth. And um I actually like him saying it's so far from the truth. Like this is so false what she's saying. It's not based in reality at all. And I stand for truth. I really liked the way that he kind of verbalized that, and brought all that together. I thought that was really interesting. So I thought that was a big win for Johnny personally. I think that they set up a structure perfectly. He talked about the abuse growing up. He talked about what it did to him. He talked about um, being in the movie industry. He talked about how he got into drugs at an early age. He talked about detox. He talked about struggling with. He talked about friends. He talked about people he loved. He talked about people he did a lot for. He talked about why he brought the lawsuit. He talked about falling in love with Amber, and that's the other thing. They were married. They were in a relationship. So I think speaking well of her and falling in love with her is again a redeemable quality and something people are going to like about him, in my opinion. Um, so that's kind of how I look at Johnny's testimony today as a lawyer. That if I was looking at that plaintiff, I would say it's a high grade. I don't know if I would say A plus, but I would say it's definitely in the A range, maybe A minus range, because I thought he did a really good job. I thought he was believable. I thought he was likable personally, um, and I think that he didn't sound high, which I'm not making a joke about that. I think that is going to be something that because sometimes he looks kind of fidgety, ADHD. Some people will talk about how he has with he's writing or clicking the pen or whatever. So I think he could have come across, almost like I'm not going to lie. In my head, when I think of Johnny Depp talking, I see Jack Sparrow and I see him almost, slurring his speech a little bit, whether he's drunk or high or whatever. That's kind of what I think in my head. So when I listened to him today, he was coherent. He, I thought was eloquent. I thought he did a great job. So, and again, I don't know if the juries think the same way, and that's why I want to hear from you. But I really think that he did a great job on the stand today personally, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of what he has in the coming days. Um, so if you have any questions, get them in the chat now, because I'm going to say, I came into this as somebody who didn't know a ton about this case, didn't know a ton about the facts. I knew who Johnny Depp was. I knew who Amber Heard was. I knew Johnny Depp was more famous than Amber Heard, and I knew there was accusations going both ways. But after listening to his testimony, he accomplished the goal that his lawyers and he wanted him to do. I like him more now today than I did yesterday. And that's all we can ask for when our client takes the stand. And so this is the closest case I felt like to a juror, because while I understand the law and how it works, now I know how difficult it is to win a defamation case. I did find him likable today. I found him honest. I found it like, I know why we're here, and I want to try to figure this out for him and for her. Who's right, who's lying, and I need to make a call today. And that's the important thing to impose on a juror. That's what's really, really important. Okay, let me jump into the chat here. Ask me any questions you want about the case, about anything else, and we will get to it. Melly, well, wait no more. We're here. I am on vacation, so it's going to be super random this week whenever I can get on. Hello, everybody. Yes, Lit Real Red, thanks for hitting the like button. I love Johnny's testimony from Prince Charming, painful and heartfelt. Hello, M. Hello, Sylvia. Thank you, Just Me. Okay, so here we go. Christopher Robin Garish. So forcing Depp to take photos of minor bruises was good coaching, trying to draw him out to man up. Okay, at first when I read this, I thought you were being sarcastic, but I think there are jurors that would take this both ways. They would say, "Oh, come on, you're really taking pictures of that. Oh, this guy just wanted to sue Amber Heard or whatever, or win the PR battle or the battle in the media." But in reality, for him to testify to that, he's looking out for Johnny. That's his job. He cares about Johnny. He wants to protect him. And maybe he's saying, I was hearing Amber Heard be crazy when Johnny wasn't around. So I had to protect Johnny from himself because he loved her and I knew this was going to backfire. And this is one of the ways I could protect him. So I thought that was very positive and important testimony from the security guy. Yes, he explained why he brought the case. Dirty Rick, was the defense hesitant to object because of the optics? And that's one of the reasons. Like I talked about, there could be multiple reasons why they wouldn't want to object throughout his testimony and continue to look like jerks or try to trip him up. While he's not a professional witness, he's about the closest thing you can get because he's not going to be flustered. He's going to get his words out. I think he made a huge statement when he said he never struck a woman in his life. Considering he is a celebrity, someone could have come forward to say differently. Seemed genuine to me. That's a great point. And I'm a Florida State guy. We always just say the same thing about Tim Tebow. Like, he was this golden boy, but it feels like it was true because somebody somewhere would have come out of the woodwork and told us if it wasn't. And the same thing here. If he abused all these women throughout his life and his career, more people would come out and say that, and nobody has. And in fact, seems like the opposite. More people coming out saying he's not. But again, the jury, will they think about that? Will they not? That's not going to be something that really comes out in testimony. It's hard to disprove that or prove that without calling everybody cumulative witnesses saying the same thing. All right, let's see what else we got. All right, we're getting into some of the likables. Hold on. Margaret, if she tries to make a narrative of her abuse from him, can she be charged with lying on the stand? So, Margaret, you're saying if Amber gets on the stand, there's narrative, she's just talking, and it's proven to be false. Could that be perjury? Of course, but it's very difficult to prove that she's actually lying. Just because the jury comes back with a defamation, or if they come back in favor of Johnny Depp, it doesn't necessarily prove that she was lying. There would have to be a separate criminal case. And as I've talked about before, and I get on my soapbox how frustrating it is that nobody seems to care when witnesses come and lie in court and they do not prosecute perjury enough. I wish they would. It would be taken more seriously, and lawyers would know that what somebody said in a depo and they swore to under oath is how they would testify at trial. That's how I wish it was. Unfortunately, it's not. All right, so Bubbleonia, likable. Judy, likable. Feed Your Head, likable. Annie, likable. Snow Bear, likable. Beeble, likable. Christopher, believable and lovable, not just likable. Rayanne, likable. Melly, likable. Graham, likable. Stargarden, likable. Dirty Rick, likable, but definitely not an everyman. Sure, I mean, I think that's tough. He's a superstar. He's not just a guy that's been in a movie or on a TV show. He's a superstar. Prince Charming, likable. Erica, likable. Lit Real Red, likable. PC, likable. Jill Sturgis, likable. Victorious, likable. Vinny, likable. Noni, absolutely likable. Christy, what's up, Christy? Likable. Sylvia, likable. The Race Cook, likable. Jody, likable. Elaine, likable. Boss Queenie, likable. Michelle, likable. Just Me, believable and likable. CS, believable, but also overly intellectualizing. Okay, so that's a little bit of a negative response. That's about as negative as it got because, okay, so Don says not likable, but better than how he had been behaving the first couple of days. Found it very difficult to follow and like him less now than I did before. Okay, it's the only person to say that here in the chat so far. Likable, lovable, likable, likable, likable from Jody. So, Christopher, as a fellow abused male, he's becoming a champion for many of us who got beaten, robbed, and abused by laughing entitled females, violent entitled females. Okay, and that's another reason why he kind of said he brought this case. People, I feel like he felt nervous in the beginning, but he kind of settled in. But let me know if you disagree. Johnny's a little too into his own thoughts. I mean, I think that's kind of how people describe him anyway. So maybe that's not a surprise. And Real Red, he's absolutely an actor, right? So it's not hard for him to memorize questions and answers, right? You wouldn't think that that's hard. All this time he's had to think about it. He's probably practiced how exactly he wants to say it, but it is hard when it's your case, your day in court. He also talked about his dirty laundry being aired, how embarrassing it was to have all this out in the public. And he wishes he wouldn't. But again, the reason he brought this case was more important than protecting his, personal privacy. Darth Muppet, likable. Fatima, likable. Don said he pulled his hair back to symbolize he's not hiding. Yeah, LV again, likable, not necessarily relatable. I get that. They can relate to his situation, sure. His slow talking was a little annoying. A couple people are saying this. It's just the way he talks. And yeah, I listened to it on 2 times speed, so maybe I didn't pick up on that quite as much as everybody that watched live. Christopher, Depp is giving clear, fluid, open answers, no deception, delay, or manipulation. I think it's a good thing that he's not talking too fast because sometimes jurors can miss that. He's an amazing storyteller. I think that obviously helps. Joanne said likable, but I liked him before. Seems he had trouble speaking without a script. Definitely likable from Cookie. So it's funny. Everybody's saying he talks slow, and I listened to it on 2 times speed, so it didn't seem slow to me. But I think if you have a witness on the stand, you'd rather them speak slowly than speak too quickly. That's just, from a lawyer's perspective that tries cases, that's how I would prefer it if I had to pick one. Obviously, I'd like a normal cadence, but I tend to speak quickly. I speak loud in court. So, I like not a slow pace, but a pace I know the jury's paying attention to. And the jury is hanging on every one of his words. He's Johnny Depp. He's a superstar. He's the plaintiff in this case, and he's testifying pretty early on in it. So we'll see. Yeah, people saying slow talking is him. Amber's reactions. What about Amber's reaction? So I thought she was like tearing up, looked like she was going to cry in a couple of spots when he started talking about the beginning of their relationship and how he loved her. So I mean, I think some of that was good. I mean, I think that's endearing to her as well. Maybe she's also regretting, what she did, or if she did lie, then I'm sure she's regretting it. But I think the jury's looking at her, looking at him, and this is going to be a long, laborious testimony for both of them. Just me. If lawyers look like this guy, volunteer for jury duty. Wish more people would volunteer for jury duty. He needed to look at the jury more while on the stand. I do think he did do a little bit of that. And he said, you all, and I want to tell you all and show you all. I think he did do a little bit of that, but Jody would have liked a little bit more. That's fair. Very interesting testimony today, but I don't get drunk or stoned at all. Very sincere. Maybe you're saying you don't think that he was. The 50 million is what he can prove he lost. We'll still see. I find him likable. Only saw him in a couple movies. Likable and truthful. So Jody again asking about looking at the jury more. I don't know. Some people hate that. Some people think that looks coached. I think like normal conversation. The way I tell my clients is, yes, you're having a conversation with the jury, but don't make it so obvious or like so that they're feeling weird or uncomfortable. Make it like you're having a conversation with me or whoever's asking you the questions and the jury. So you keep that eye contact. You say, I ask you the question, and you look at me as you start to answer, and then you look at the jury a part of the answer. You look at me, and, make it kind of fluid, like you're having a conversation with me and the jury. That's kind of usually how I describe it to make it look as natural as possible. So Grant says, do you think the jury may find against Amber because they find her unlikable? She's just been getting dunked on all trial so far. Absolutely. The jury can find for who they want for the reasons that they want. We hope they follow the law and we hope they do what's right. But a lot of times, like I said, it comes down to who they like more, who they feel is believable. And in this case, you're going to hear in closing, I can almost guarantee, and I do it in every one of my closings, you tell the jury that they weigh the credibility of each witness. They determine who to believe and who not to believe. Just because somebody swore under oath or just because they took the stand and testified does not mean you have to take what they say as truth. Does not mean you have to believe them. You, the jurors, the fact finders, make the decision as to whether or not you want to believe them. And you can dismiss people's testimony. So if they believe Johnny Depp and find him truthful, and they dismiss Amber Heard and find that, and they do not believe her, don't think she's truthful, then she doesn't have the evidence of her testimony in the jury's mind, and she could lose. So it's absolutely something that happened. It's actually in jury instructions that they can do that. They have the power to do that. Yeah, how do I think Dirty Rick, the likability of Depp will compare to Heard? I'm really not sure. And yes, I think that's the defense's biggest hurdle, which is why from the very jump, I would have simplified the case and said any abuse in her mind can give her the opinion of her First Amendment protected speech to say she believes and feels like she is an abuse victim. And she believes and feels that because everybody likes Johnny Depp and knows Johnny Depp, that's a big, powerful man, and she's got to deal with that in society. And if it's her opinion, then it's protected and is not defamation. Thoughts on the judge? I've gone back and forth. I used to people say they love the judge. I think she seems nice. She seems nice to try a case in front of. She's not a jerk, which is really nice. But I do think she's missed some calls on objections. I do feel like it would be kind of like a moving target, which I hate. And because of her inappropriate calls, I would give her a bench brief on leading objections and hearsay objections, which she may find disrespectful. But I would say, Judge, this is really important because if you're sustaining these objections, when they're not supposed to be sustained, they're just going to object more to this stuff, and we're not going to be allowed to get into admissible evidence. And so, for appellate reasons, I just want this bench brief to be on file because did you see this happen is not a leading question. And she has sustained that objection a few times, which I don't like, and that's frustrating. But she is making calls, and she's keeping the trial moving, and she's punctual, and I like all of that generally. Amber's lawyer, what do you think of her, the female lawyer? I don't think she's been great so far. Likable, Jules A. from London. Legally, what burden of proof is required? It's a preponderance of the evidence, or more likely than not, or some people say 51%, but actually in most jurisdictions it's 50.01%, meaning you just have to tip the scales a little bit, not beyond a reasonable doubt or clear and convincing evidence or anything like that. It's actually one of the lesser burdens in these types of cases. Yes, Soul, I think Johnny can win. Jack, how much do you charge an hour? Depends on the case. We don't do a lot of hourly cases purposely. I hate hourly cases. I hate being a slave to the clock. I hate billing clients for text messages and emails, and the minimum is like zero point 0.2 per hour. So every email is supposed to be zero point 0.2. We bill between $500 and $600 an hour at our firm, depending on the lawyer. We have 4 different lawyers, so the billing ranges between $500 and $600 an hour. Right now, that changes. Sometimes it can go up with inflation, things like that. But right now, that's where we're at. Yeah. So feed your head. Great question. This is kind of what I've been feeling from the jump and why I said it's a hard case to win for Johnny Depp. How can Johnny prove he didn't ever hit Amber? Seems a hard thing to prove. I agree with you, unless the jury is hanging on every word and believing what he says, because now that he said he never hit her, now that he said he's never hit a woman before, it is in evidence. And if they take it as truth, that can be evidence that proves he didn't hit her. Now, common sense would say they've got to weigh the other evidence and wait to hear what Amber brings. And, we kind of go back and forth and try to make a decision as to what's true. But I agree with you. That's the difficult part is he has to prove that she was lying with malice in that op-ed and caused him damages. Difficult. I think it's a difficult case. Good point here by Red A. Seem to go into a lot of detail, which usually proves what you're saying is true. So hopefully he'll do the same with physical abuse. More likables. Do we anticipate his wife testify during Dirty Rick? And again, I tried to come into this with as clean slate as I could. I don't know what happened in the London trial. It doesn't seem like she's going to testify, though. I'm not positive, but I don't think so. I even heard somebody say maybe she was in the courtroom. I'm not sure. I don't think she's going to testify, but I really don't know. Dana, likable. Oh, and also a couple other things Johnny did I thought were as good as somebody said something about dark humor. I don't know if they're talking about Johnny or somebody else, but he said bless you to somebody. He kind of giggled a couple times. He made some kind of jokes. That is just so likable. And if a jury's liking with or laughing with him, nodding their head with him, we can't see the jury obviously, but really, really interesting. My four girls, okay, if he gets his way, what can be compensated from her? All of his damages, lost movies, lost revenue, damages to his family, potentially punitive damages, potentially attorney's fees and costs, all sorts of things. I don't know how much money she has. If that's you mean, I don't know how collectible she is, but I don't think he's worried about the money. I think he's more worried about clearing his name. Likable, likable because it's all relative. Because she's despisable. Rich, that's how likable from Diane. Interesting. Love him even more. I'm on the East Coast, yeah, and it's still light out, 8:45. It's still not pitch black, although it looks a little lighter in the screen here than it does in person. Is he the last witness on his side? I don't think so, but I don't know. Not if this is going to last 6 weeks. If it's going to last 3 weeks, he might be. I don't know. I feel like that would be quick. I feel like I would expect more. I hope he's not the last witness for his side, but I don't know. LV, I sort of feel like they both contributed to the toxic relationship. Both are wrong. One might be more wrong than the other because of the after the fact false allegations. Yeah, I mean, if they're both mutually abusive, then I feel like that leans more in Amber's favor for this trial. Yes, Mr. Turn Up the Party, this is live. I feel like I am just way behind in the comments. Yeah, Franco and other lovers will be called, Christopher said. Yeah, so I don't think he's going to be the last witness. Good point. Yeah, Grant says, I feel like according strictly to defamation laws, I doubt he wins, but I really hope he does. Was the Washington Post or whatever news site the article that was on named part of the suit to begin with? I don't know. Like I said, I didn't follow any of the pretrial stuff on this, but they're not here now. And Amber's lawyers made sure to let the jury know that in opening, saying you don't see the Washington Post here. They're the ones that published this. They're the ones that printed it and disseminated it. So it was interesting. They kind of brought that out because maybe the jurors are thinking like you do, which is why I love to hear from you guys on the show because you can let me know what's going on in the minds of jurors. Can a person get charged with a crime for mental abuse? Yes, potentially different states kind of call it different things. I can see her losing it if she testifies, Mara says. Absolutely. Your client can win it for you, your client can lose it for you. Many abusers don't believe what they do is too bad. I expect her to behave as if this isn't a big deal and or he is being a liar. I don't think so. I think she may say what she didn't do is a big deal. I think she's going to admit that she abused him, and I think she's going to push hard that he also abused her and it was mutual and his was so much worse than hers. I do. I don't think she can deny that they both did it based on some of the recordings we've already seen and heard. Thank you, Mr. Sport. Appreciate that. It's really fun to do, and I am shocked at how many people are on here where I just randomly showed up live, but that excites me and makes me want to do it more while I'm on this trip. Whenever I do have a free 30 or 45 minutes, I'm going to try to jump on here and talk to all you guys because this was awesome and so much fun. We got a few minutes left. John, thanks, buddy. Appreciate it, man. I really hope Elon Musk testifies. I really hope he does. Uh, to protect you, I'm not sure if you're an attorney or not, but case law is clear. That is not a leading question. Now, it can be if you say, I don't know. I mean, I even like, did you do this or not? I guess the or not, you're putting that in the question. There may be ways you can make it a leading question, but generally, if it's open ended, like, did you ever go to Australia with Johnny Depp? That's not a leading question. But again, we can agree to disagree. More people saying likable. Someone got their hair pulled back. I don't know if you talk about me or Johnny, but yes, this is just a little wink to Johnny Depp, who pulled his hair back to testify. Heard shall testify. She needs the attention. I do think she is going to testify. Ooh, Brianna. I believe Amber will come across more credible on the stand than Depp. Interesting. Who in the chat agrees with Brianna? Let's just do a guess just for fun. Who do you think at the end of the day, at the end of the trial, we're gonna say had the better time on the stand, did a better job testifying, and was more likable? Depp or Heard? Not who you think's gonna win, just who you think's gonna be the better witness. They're both actors, right? So they both know how to put on a show. I have a feeling I know what the votes are gonna be, but you think her defense is mutual assured destruction? Not destruction, not mutual bringing everybody down, just that they both contributed to the abuse. They both hit each other. They both were potentially abusers and they both were potentially victims. That's fine. She wins if that's the case. If they are both victims and both abusers, she wins because what she said was her opinion and not a lie in the op ed. Great time of day for you. Good. Musk will testify probably on video, right? Makes sense. Hopefully they wouldn't drag him out to do this. He's trying to buy Twitter, right? So we're scrolling down to see the Depp. Okay, so there are a couple Ambers here. There are 2 or 3 Ambers with Brianna, but a lot of Depp. A large majority swinging towards Depp here. Amber is countersuing. Does she have to testify? No, but in civil cases, you can force the other party to testify if you want them to. Meaning, I can put the if I'm representing the plaintiff, I can put the defendant on my witness list, subpoena them, and call them and force them to get up there and testify because they don't have a Fifth Amendment right not to testify. Now they can invoke the Fifth Amendment right based on a question if the question elicits an answer that could be incriminating. Separate story. I can force them to get up on the stand, which you can't in a criminal case for the prosecutor. You can't force the defendant to get on the stand, but vice versa. The defendant can also call the plaintiff to the stand. Yeah, mostly Depp. So does Depp get crossed tomorrow? I don't know how long his direct examination is going to be, but they'll cross him after his direct is done, and maybe tomorrow, maybe the next day. Brianna, yeah, resounding Depp. Would his lawyers encourage him to sue if they thought he didn't have much of a chance? I'll say something. So sure, lawyers can be scummy, and this is Leonte's question. Leonette, sorry. They could be scummy and push rich people to sue because they can bill hourly and make a lot of money. Sure, they can do that. But I don't think that the lawyers had to push too hard to get Johnny to do this. I think this is something Johnny probably wanted to do, it seems like. Um, and did they encourage him more than they would have a poor person that wanted to sue his ex-wife for doing this? The answer to that probably is a resounding yes, because they know he can pay the bill. And if somebody can't foot the bill, would they want to take this risk? Probably not. So Sports Bad Call said he went and looked at past TV interviews and Johnny Depp talks exactly the same. I hate to say it, but there's a chance potential jurors have done the same thing and gone and see um, exactly how he talks to see if he's putting on a show here or if this is the real Johnny Depp. Yes, Christy, very important point, and I want to point that out. We haven't heard Amber yet, so we're just guessing. Pontificating is something that we can do for fun once in a while here because we're not actually making the decision. Lisa St. John, Peter, will they be able to use previous depositions? Yes. Any other previous sworn testimony? Now, it is interesting if you listen. If you don't know the rules, maybe you don't pick it up, but you have to let the witness know what the sworn testimony is you're about to impeach them with. So usually you say, do you remember taking your deposition in this case? I was there. Your attorney was there. The court reporter was there. It was in Los Angeles. It was in the high rise on the 8th floor. She was typing down everything you said. We were all there together. It was on May 8th, 2020, whatever it may be. You let them know before you impeach them with it. But when they're talking about the stuff in London, it's funny because it's just a little bit different and you see what the laws are different like in London. It's not necessarily a deposition. It could be an under oath statement or a sworn testimony or sworn statement. So it is kind of interesting just to hear how they set up the different sworn testimony in the case. It's resounding Depp in the trial chat as well. So if you just take society, and we've got different little sectors and pockets of society, and I like to think that everybody that watches this and that's in this community, they're not a monolith. They don't always agree. We disagree on cases. Sometimes they pick sides I'm surprised with, sometimes they don't. But I think it's a good cross section. I also think, yeah, people watching the trial are too. Now they may be tuning in because they're Johnny Depp fans, but I do think it's interesting to think that it seems to be a real resounding lean toward Johnny Depp. And if I represented Amber Heard, that would make me nervous because I would have somebody doing this research and seeing what everybody's saying, what everybody's thinking, what everybody's feeling, who they hate, who they like, things like that. So it seems like that, Diane. It seems like they're focusing just on the article as the defamation in this case. Just cause, I apologize, man. That's terrible. I'm sorry for your loss. I'm out of town this week though, so I'm not going to be able to take you up on that. But enjoy Clearwater. It's a great place. Get outside. Enjoy the weather. Enjoy the beach, man. Sorry for your loss. Dirty Rick, yes, you can impeach them with under oath statements. Yeah, in any case. If they swore under oath and they said something and now that they're lying, you can impeach them with that. All right, any other questions here before we go? Why would they only focus on that article? Isn't that risky? I had the same question. So it's interesting because defamation has to be publicized. A lot of people have to see it and it has to affect his career. It has to cause him damage. It has to have malice. So if she's just telling her counselor or if she's telling law enforcement, if she's telling her mom or her friend, that doesn't meet the bar for defamation. It has to be something you put out there in the press, which that article does. So that's, kind of prototypical defamation. And that's why they have to kind of use something like that. April, I see you're asking some personal questions on here, or some specific questions I can't give. And you said, I wish you could give me counsel. I can't do specific legal advice on the show. Nothing I say on here or give on here is specific legal advice, but we put, and I don't know what this description is going to look like because I did this one myself. There's no tags or anything in it. But email me, lawyeryouknow@gmail.com. If you have any specific legal questions, I'm happy to talk to you one-on-one. We provide our office number, 727-441-9030. You can call us, you can email us, because I want to be that source to you. I want to be that lawyer that you call for things. And if I can't help you, I'll connect you with somebody who can, all over the country. Even in some other countries, we have good contacts that we can connect people with. So if you have specific questions, reach out to me by phone or email, and I'm happy to talk to you. I just can't do it here, can't do it on the chat, can't do it on the videos for everyone to see, because people don't know, but initial consults and attorney consultations, you actually have an attorney-client relationship there, and that conversation is privileged, until you make the decision whether or not to become that lawyer. And I can't, go tell other people about that. And that's how it should be. So just want to make that point here, because I do see a couple people asking stuff like that. All right. I got to get back to it. This was really fun. I'm happy I did this. I'm happy all you guys came here. Please like the video if you haven't already. We've gotten up to 500 people or something in here watching. So if you could like the video, that would be awesome. If you haven't already subscribed to our page, please subscribe. Ring that bell. If you're coming over from Legal Bites or Rakita, ring that bell. I am going to try to get on their shows again as the week goes on. You guys are awesome. Thanks so much for being here. Until next time, whenever that may be, hit that bell so you get notified whenever I do a random live like this. See ya.